In today's episode of Accessible Astrology.
Adjustable is such a great word because astrology, I think, can be so heady and we think we
Yeah.
know it. But until you can get it all the way down into the feels and really hold that and hold our own experience, then it really prevents us actually from connecting with another. So your method allows us to share intimately that vulnerable voice of truth and the patterning that it's not, there's no shame in what we went through. We're actually great warriors because we have this patterning and these cycles, and it brought reassurance in a way no other method has brought me.
Welcome to the Accessible Astrology podcast, where we make astrology digestible and understandable. A podcast where we learn all about the rising sign method, a breakthrough approach to astrology, which I have discovered and created over the course of over 15 years, working with thousands of clients, studying hundreds of thousands of charts, and working with hundreds of people in our rising sign group. Here, it's all about learning the difference between who you are versus who you think you're supposed to be. I am Eugenia Krok, and in today's episode, I want to talk to you about the sign that I think is the most misunderstood sign in the zodiac, and a few reasons why. My guest Laura wasn't entirely sure that she was doing her life the way she was supposed to be doing it until she joined our rising sign groups and met other Leo risings just like her. She realized that actually there was no shame in who she was. There was nothing wrong in what she decided to do in her life, that actually she was a powerful warrior, that she was actually a lioness and understanding this is who I am. And with great support and information, Laura learned to greatly accept herself, and you can learn how to as well. But first, let's talk about the topic today. The sign of the zodiac that I think is the most misunderstood and misperceived sign of all of the signs, and that is Leo. I have endless information where I discuss about why I think Leo is a misperceived sign. Namely, I go through this in my core curriculum, which is my foundational education that opens you up to astrology with 98 lessons on foundations in astrology. I go through every sign and house. I go through planets, rulership, but also why are glyphs the way they are? What's the history of astrology? Why are astrology horoscopes in the newspaper? I go through the whole breadth of astrology, and I've been told this is the best course on your foundations into astrology, but honestly, it goes many steps beyond that with 98 lessons. So if you want to learn more about Leo, be sure to join our free community and head into the classroom and get the core curriculum. So why is Leo to me such a misperceived sign? Honestly, there's about 1,000 reasons why, but here's the main one. When you open a book and it talks about Leo, it says that Leo is the actor on the stage. Hey, come look at me. And as I started going into my astrology practice over 15 years ago, I started meeting with Leo clients. And one of the clients I met with that really completely changed my mind on this entire topic was a gal who was not only a Leo sun sign, but she was a Leo moon. She was also a Leo rising. So she had the big three all in Leo. And this was one of the most shy women I had ever come across. And I sat there and I sat there and I sat there and I for months, what is it? I would see her. She worked at a counseling center that I was working at as a therapist, and I just couldn't understand it. And then one day it occurred to me that all of the paintings hanging at the counseling center were hers. Now, she didn't sign any of them. So I had to go to her and say, hey, Leo rising, Leo moon, Leo sun, are these paintings yours? And she said, yeah. I said, why'd you not hang them? She said, I don't want people to know it's me. So instead of her being like, yo, look at me, she was actually having a massive impact on everyone at this counseling center because everyone who sat in the offices looked at their art. She really created the environment of the entire place. When she was the first person you met, but nobody knew anything about her. And that's when I really started to understand Leo. Leo is not so much about, hey, look at me. It's more about, hey, you're looking at me. And that is very different, a very different take on Leo. Again, I go through this in depth in my core curriculum and in all of my live content. I talk about this a lot because it really irks me. Of all of the clients I've had and all the charts I've read throughout my life and all the friends I've had and people I've known, I would actually argue that Leos are the shyest. Because if you're looking at it from the perspective of, hey, look at me versus, hey, you're looking at me, you can imagine how that psychology is going to be very different. And that is the sign that I believe is the most misunderstood sign in all of astrology. Right now, you can access our online astrology community totally for free. In this online community, I go live with you once a week, every Wednesday at 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I post daily content about current astrology transits, but also about my thoughts on what's going on in the world right now and what's up in the collective. You have an opportunity to connect with other like-minded people just like you. You also have access to our classroom with a plethora of courses based on general astrology concepts like the core curriculum, all the way to detailed courses that have been formulated just for you based on your rising sign. And soon we're going to be reopening up our rising sign groups, which include our rising sign method courses and all the material that comes with that, and an opportunity to connect daily with people just like you so that you are not alone in this world. The way you are is exactly the way you're supposed to be. And that you realize that the healing potential of being with people just like you and getting gotten is everything in life. I will be opening up these groups specifically to people in our free community first, with really amazing opportunities. So be sure to join our free community because it is a wealth of information right now, totally free to you.
So I'm so excited today because I cannot think of a better way to use this Sun square Gemini than to talk about my favorite Gemini rising, Eugenia. It's so exciting. I love it. I was thinking about that today. I'm like, that's my activation point. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get to radiate talking about my Gemini rising person.
Yeah.
And I just love that. It warms my heart.
Let's just get into it. Let's just start chatting. Laura, I'm so happy, first off, that you're willing to have this conversation with me because it's asking a lot, but you're excited, and that makes me excited.
I am.
So let me just ask you, I'm going to start this a little bit differently than I usually do. Where does the enthusiasm come from about the rising signs and about my work? Where's the enthusiasm coming from?
That is such a great question. I think the more we're enthusiastic, it's because we had such doubts. I first heard of you when you were on somebody else's podcast, and she asked, do you do Placidus, Coke, whole sign? And you're like, I do rising signs. And my mouth dropped. I'm like, I have to hear more. This lady is, wow, she is like against the grain. I love people that are against the grain, by the way. I'm like, I have to go check this out. Everything in me resonated with the things you were saying. I said, I have to learn more. It was 2021, and I jumped on, you're like, there are these groups, and we're going to divide them into rising signs. I'm like, oh, I'm a Leo rising. I'm an Aquarius sun. So nobody is going to be like me in that group. I'm like a one and only unique person. So I'll just drop in because I don't really think it. She said, I don't think it's true. They can't be like me. And we all got on in 2021 when the whole country was divided. And there were like 30, I don't know, like the whole Zoom room was filled with Leo risings. We were there. We were present. We were intent. We were listening to every single word you said like it was manna from heaven. And it was like, yeah, great. Yes. I'm like, wow, that applies to me. I'm like, I'm such a believer in this. This is incredible. And the person right next to me in the Zoom room, she had a similar issue and the other issue. And then you go, okay, Leo risings, let's go to your fourth house where your home is. Scorpio. Oh, does she really want to go there? She is a freaking genius. And I get to be a part of this group. And the people in our cohorts, they were like soul sisters and brothers. We just happened to have women, but if a guy was in there, they would have been that too. And regardless if they were a Cancer sun or a Pisces sun, they were a Leo rising, and that bonded us somehow. We had parallel experiences. And for me, that made me feel safe. I'm a fixed fire sign. I need to feel safe. And so I'm able to share my enthusiasm because I am so safe when I'm with you because I met my tribe of Leos and you help facilitate that. So I am forever grateful.
Oh, Laura, I love it. Thank you so much. Now, let me go back to your world before you discovered this method of astrology. Where were you before? How did astrology come to you? How did you feel about astrology before you learned about the power of your rising sign? Yeah, what was your life like before you understood this information?
So I really took a deep dive into astrology in 2020 when the world just stopped turning. And I happened to have broken my ankle and my tibia and my fibia, and I was in bed for 3 months. And so I started self teaching myself astrology. And I really looked at it through the lens of my sun sign because that was just my natural starting point. But I was caught up in the confusion of what house system to use. It felt like I was focusing on the wrong things. And it just felt overwhelming. The whole astrology. It was like, am I speaking three languages at once? What's going on? How do I do this? I was trying to find different entry points because when I would hit upon a truth, it would resonate so clearly to me. And I'd go, there's something with this. I know it, but where is it? And then I just happened to hear that podcast, and you're rarely on other people's podcasts. And I just heard it. I'm like, oh, this is good.
It was overwhelming and didn't really know where to start. So, did you find through learning astrology through my method that it made it more digestible, easier to understand, or accessible?
Definitely accessible, but digestible is such a great word
Mm,
because astrology, I think, can be so heady and we think we
yeah.
know it. But until you can get it all the way down into the feels and really hold that and hold our own experience, then it really prevents us actually from connecting with another. So your method allows us to share intimately that vulnerable voice of truth and the patterning that it's not, there's no shame in what we went through. We're actually great warriors because we have this patterning and these cycles, and it brought reassurance in a way no other method has brought me.
Yeah, the way I like to describe it, which the professor told me in my master's program, is there's nothing like getting gotten. To be gotten is very healing. And would you say you had that experience with the groups of other Leo risings?
Absolutely. One of my favorites is when we moved to the seventh house of partnership. And
Mm.
you're like, okay, you guys do it differently. So, how's your marriages working out?
Yeah. Yeah. I think after having a lot of these interviews, it seems that seventh house is where a lot of the really helpful information comes in because I think that most of us are conditioned for our marriages or relationship status to look one way, which is get married, move in together, share a bedroom, have 2.5 kids, and that's that. And after doing this for 15 years and working with these groups exclusively for 4 years, it's pretty clear that there's actually a handful of people who can do that. The vast majority of people are not actually built to do partnership in that way. And that's a really liberating piece of information when you realize that, oh, my approach to astrology, or not approach to astrology, my approach to relationships is just different. It's mine. And so would you say, I heard you say in there too, that the shame piece, can you talk more about that? Not necessarily in terms of relationship, you can, but in general, how do you think the rising sign method and being with the group of other Leo risings has helped you work with any sense of shame and guilt about yourself or who you are and what you do?
We spent a lot of time looking at our fourth house, which is where Scorpio is for the Leo rising. So wherever Scorpio is in your chart, if you take a deep dive with Eugenia, oh, it it allowed me to talk vulnerably of things through my life I've hidden because I had the belief that it wasn't normal. We wouldn't talk about those. Those would be hidden. No one else would be like me. No one else would understand it. No one else had the capability to understand it. So I was taught or told myself. Yet having Scorpio in your fourth house really has so many similarities when you bring us all together who have it there. And I just felt my compassion grow, not only for myself, but those around me and how we coped. We did the
Mm,
best we could,
mm,
and we're stronger and wiser because of that. So
mm,
you gave us the wording and the approval to be
mm,
safe because us fixed again,
mhm.
fixed people, we like it safe.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We've put you together with not just Leo risings, but other fixed risings. And I'm not sure you've had the chance to be with other fire risings. That's been really fun too. Can you give like a story or an example of how this information has practically helped you in your everyday life outside of these groups?
Oh, so I look at, for example, my family. I'll just start there. I went ahead and did everybody's chart in my family and understanding, for instance, my husband is a Sag rising. He and I have the same elements then in the houses. Yet my daughter is a Cancer rising, and I have a son that's a Taurus rising, and my daughter's all feely, watery, and I would just not understand why she didn't get me and
Mm,
fire and the radiance, and you want to do that. And it allowed me to go, I'm not doing anything wrong. She just interprets a different way. But instead of being vague, what way is that? I understand it's that water with my son, very rooted, that earth, very practical. So it helped me immediately without anyone else's paying thousands of dollars to go help us consult with what are these basic family dynamics. Ah, okay. I understand now how I clearly and effectively can communicate to my beloved children
mhm.
and my husband.
Yeah, that's been a big one, realizing that I've just learned through talking to so many of you in this capacity is it's not just about what you learn about yourself, but it's really having the awareness that, oh, wait, so yeah, for example, I'm a Gemini rising, my mom is an Aquarius rising. Sure, we're both air risings, but man, we do not do life the same. And that's been massive to realize I'm a mutable rising, she's a fixed rising. I need to have grace for her approach to life and why she came at life this way, or what happened that led her to come to life this way, and why I come to life the way I do through mutability. And just those stories of the difference has been really game changing. It seems like for everyone to have the empathy that, okay, this doesn't work for my children. This doesn't work for my partner. This doesn't work for my parents. That's okay. This is who I am. That's who they are. And this gives me the grace to accept the differences, it seems like.
It brings in grace in a powerful way.
Mm, mm. So if you were talking to someone on the street who was like, I would love to be in a group of other Leo risings, but they were on the fence, what would you say to them would be the benefit of being in a group of people with the same rising sign?
In a world that is so divided, this is where the soul heals itself, because we can come back to a common language where we mentally understand, our heart understands, our gut understands, and we can see the patterns. And therefore, when we look at maybe the same problems in a whole new way with new perspective, it becomes a dance and it doesn't become a polarity. So come and dance with us.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. That's a big point of pride is we don't get into the politics and we don't get into it doesn't matter your religion, your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, your political beliefs. We've got extreme right, we've got extreme left. It doesn't really matter. At the end, we're looking at what unifies us under this cosmic blanket of nature, really, and having that experience where it's unity, not so divisive. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you shared that. So, is there any other things you would want to say just about the rising sign method or anything?
You come so full of information, yet as soon as you enter the door, you go straight intuitive and you
Mhm.
bring up things that may seem random, but they have been so pertinent. And wow, thank you for sharing that. And you share your own vulnerabilities, and it allows us to feel safe for us to share our vulnerabilities on that, giving another perspective. And you hold the space energetically with precision and grace. And I am eternally grateful for that. Other things that I'd love to talk about is you are the only person that talks about people making decisions in a cardinal, fixed, mutable way. And for me, that has been such an aha moment. So I go fixed, mutable, where I lose focus and I go off into la la land, and then maybe someone brings me back, and then cardinal, and I can't let go.
Mm.
Understand that patterning in my daily routines where I have Capricorn, who is very focused on the top,
Mm.
the Leo risings have Capricorn there, is as paramount as the rising sign itself.
Right.
So I think those two should not be separate. They're just like, wow,
Mhm.
wow. That is the like right foot, left foot. Integrate those two and the understanding of the decision making process, no matter what the decision is. And
Mm.
that allows my mind to go, you know what? The universe in its genius has made us all so completely opposite. And it is such an act of a miracle or a genius that we're even able to come back to unity. But it's these unique patternings. And as astrology likes to find the hum of the chart, what you're having us do is listen to two different hums that most people haven't brought into awareness, the rising sign and then the cardinal fixed mutable hum. And those two set the dance.
Mm.
Those two get us going. Okay, so I'm going to be with my friend Eugenia today. She is a Gemini. Yeah, Gemini rising. So she's going to be mutable. Yeah, she talks for 2 hours when I could have done it in 15 minutes. Oh, I don't care. I love all her stories because now I really know her and she's awesome. And you know what? She is awesome. Her fixedness, she goes through. Your research is phenomenal. I'm blown away.
Mm.
Great. And then at the end, she's got that fix because she's just there. You're not getting rid of
Mm.
her. Where I'm just like, don't go. Is it over? So, when I can understand that, I laugh. I laugh
Mm.
with it. I'm like, this is how we roll. This is Eugene
Mhm.
and I dancing, and it's okay because that's how we work. And there's
Mhm.
no wrong or right. There's no shaming. There's just, yeah, this is the dance that we have. And I have learned so many tidbits from you, from fasting during moon cycle to how to meet your man and bedroom situations too for the resources like that, or however it comes up, we can all digest that information. So it's been fun. You've made
Mm,
it fun.
right.
Mutable signs make things fun for us fixed, and
Yeah, we
I
do.
love that.
We keep it interesting for sure. Yeah. It's fun to share all those different resources. As a mutable Gemini rising, I'm always collecting information and data, and I love sharing it. Absolutely. And I just want to point out to those of you listening or watching that we have three sets of houses when it comes to astrology, in a sense, where we have the angular, the succeedent, and the cadent houses. And I go through, when I teach the rising sign method, through that. So I actually start by teaching the first, and then the seventh, and then the fourth, and then the 10th, and then the second, and then the eighth, and so on. And so it's a very different approach too, where I'm not looking at what's your first house, what's your second house. It's actually a very different method of how I teach about your chart. And I know you're expressing that, so I wanted to give a little bit more information on that. And what other like exciting parts?
Well,
I want to
I
hear
have to
more.
say, yes, yes, your research is
Mm,
phenomenal.
mm,
There was such fear out there when Pluto moved into Aquarius, and
mm,
how you broke that down, very factual on what had happened in the past on cycles, not necessarily that it has to happen the same way because our consciousness grows, but it made it tangible. And having the whole rocket ship analogy of, oh, we're building the rocket ship, oh, it took off, oh, it crashed back down, oh, we're coming back again brought humor into it. But these outer planets, society hasn't had that long, like Pluto, to really work with it.
mm,
So how do we integrate this in? You've opened dialogue that we can really go, okay, this is a tangible, accessible thing we can look at Pluto in our life. And for the Leo risings, we've had Pluto in our sixth house of Capricorn, which has been really heavy.
mm,
I've been a lucky one that had it right on my moon. So there
mm,
was a lot of things about releasing with my mother, and a lot of loss, a lot of grief. You've also given a lot of resources to how to deal with grief.
mm.
And we will have grief in our life, and how to process that, and some tools, and that our eyes can be wide open, that we're not running away from it in fear or just resisting it in some way, but really that it's part of the integration.
Mhm. The whole circle, the whole wheel of life. You just mentioned something I want to get into a little bit more. The part about fear. One of the things that I hear a lot from people in our group and our community is that a lot of astrologers out there are striking fear into the hearts of their viewers and listeners. And I don't follow astrology. I don't listen to a single astrology podcast or YouTube video or nothing, because it doesn't resonate with me for the most part, because I do feel a lot of astrology is off. I don't think a lot of it actually makes sense. I think it's just a pop culture. Uh, that's part of it. But part of it is because I have no desire to live in fear. And I don't think that is the way to be. I don't think that we are that powerful. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We are not God. We are mere mortal. And to honor a God and to honor nature, I think we need to approach astrology from a very practical, nature based perspective, and to release our hands from the wheels of what God should be driving, which is the source that is much bigger and larger than us and our ignorance. And I do feel that what I've heard from a lot of people is that a lot of astrologers are saying this transit's coming, doomsday is coming, the end of the world. And a lot of people come to my work because they're sick of feeling in fear. And I genuinely believe if you are not in gratitude and love, you are being co-opted by something that's probably not feeding you anything nourishing for your soul. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about that, because you have probably learned from other astrologers more than even I have. What is the difference between my work and that of other astrologers when it comes to fear specifically? I'm just curious.
If I may use Pluto as an example, when other astrologers start out with Pluto is Hades in the Greek mythology, and all of a sudden, for me, my mind goes back, Hades, the hell, the devil. When you talk about Pluto, it's much more of like a glacier that moves over through consciousness, changing the underlying themes. So the power of myth is, I love it. I love the archetypes. But some myths have been drilled down into human psyche with such fear, like Hades, that there's baggage that just comes up. You're like, where did that come from? Was that unconscious? It really triggers deeper things. So having the perspective that whatever old consciousness that is no longer needed is just ready to be upgraded, and I'm rising with that, and Pluto's helping me, just like a slow glacier melting down and retracting to reveal what is there, what is beneath, what has been hidden over all of these years. Because we are moving forward in our consciousness, we are healing, we are getting to root issues, we are able to communicate, we do have the technology to imagine and live lives that our ancestors couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. And, truly all of the planets are working for us. The gods are working for us. The goddesses are working for us. That life is, even in the most difficult moments, working for us. And to look at Pluto like that, or a lot of people are terrified of Saturn transits, for example. And I find that Saturn, yeah, he limits us, but he sets us free. He matures us. He gives us, it's not always fun, but he gets the work done. There's always both in life, right? There's positive and a negative, and focusing on one over the other doesn't seem like a crazy good use of time.
That's another thing that I love about your course is really you focus on the natal chart. You can just talk almost forever on the natal chart, which takes the power away from the transits. Transits may affect me or not, depending on the work I have done on my own spiritual evolution. And so that makes me feel powerful and confident because it's my chart, my natal chart, and that I can just go so deep within it. And your beautiful graphics from the baby and the toddler and the school age going around, the retired person, and then the final Pisces is beautiful. And it resonates with such a truth, and it brings it back to the natural cycles. And I'm sure people later watching this will see your graphic that you can put up. And I've never seen anything like it. And it's true. I know you and I are both Aquarius suns, so we were born in the dead of winter. I was way up in Duluth, Minnesota. There was no light right in the evening. And so how that affected me growing up, it does matter. And most astrologers have never thought of that, but it makes it into a physiological thing. It ties in our bodies because we are our bodies and our mind and our spirit. So again, you're strengthening that connection and that core.
Yeah, I say the neurology of astrology, right? It 100% our brain is shaped by what's going on the earth when we come into it. I was just with a baby, and he's turned 4 months old, and he's now past that fourth trimester, and he's here now. Babies from 0 to 4 or 3 months old are, I like to call it, just sacks of organ meat. There's not really much going on there quite yet, except for an incredible download of the environment that they're in. And when you are born makes a difference. What you take in from the sun and from nature and the birds or lack of birds, it makes a difference. Yeah, I love that I can bring the natural phases into this and link that to the natural phases of human development and life. And yeah. Anything else you want to share? I just love hearing all of the enthusiasm. I love it.
Well, I would also like to continue to support what we just talked. We're in right now this Jupiter Saturn square, kind of the new versus the old or the activation. But this new is, I'm feeling much more about getting back to the natural cycles and just having that with the light. Like the new is the old again because it's the real, it's not this fake. And so what people are thinking is new, it's really that deeper level. It's understanding, being so grounded with the breath, with our neurotransmitters, with our good health, with the trees that blossom in spring and let them, the leaves go and fall, and honoring those cycles. I've been doing a lot of work with the moon phases of cycles, and really, as I'm edging towards 60, trying to go more to time on moon time. Hey, why do I have to be to the second? Why? I used to be a person that was just, I had a watch on every, I knew what second it was. And then I had a coach in my 30s challenge me, take off your watch. No, not me. I have to have a watch. That was the best thing ever. I'm never late. I'm always on time. I'm connected with the time of where I need to be, what I need, my body needs, my spirit needs, the environment around me needs. And this is that square, and you are definitely part of the Jupiter. You're so wonderfully Jupiter and expansive, and it's the new, fresh, healthy way that can be sustained. That's how you know it can be sustained.
Yeah. Yeah, just to throw a little story, a little personal I love to tell personal stories, because I just think we learn best through story. I don't know, I could be crazy, but we can relate to stories is my belief. And one of the reasons I think I became skilled in astrology, especially in the way I am, is that I was living in an uninsulated cabin in the woods. I don't know, like 7,000 feet, something like that, for 7 years off and on. And when you live in an uninsulated cabin in the middle of the woods, you learn something about nature, right? You really feel the cold when it's cold, and you really feel the hot when it's hot. And I could do nothing to artificially change that environment. Nothing. I had single pane windows and everything. And I really loved it because I got to actually watch how the birds are changing throughout the seasons, and how the plants are changing throughout the season, and how I'm noticing the same changes within myself. And I think a big reason that people don't understand astrology, or B, think it's woo, is because they don't live in the natural world. And I think it really hit me. I'll never forget. At one point, I was living in that cabin, and I went down to visit a cousin of mine who lives in Texas. And very different culture than one that I'm used to. And I walked into his house, and I'm like, it's literally freezing cold in here. And he's, because it's hot out. And I'm like, this is so crazy. You literally have your thermostat set to the temperature where I would normally choose to burn a fire. Like, it's 64 degrees. That's when I'm pulling out my wood to get the house warmed up. So while it's like summertime and it's very hot outside, you're living in a climate controlled, incredibly cold environment. How could you possibly have connection to nature in that situation? I'll never forget that moment where I was like, oh, I think because I've been forced to live in the natural world through choices of my own, I've embodied it. I've experienced it. And it's true. Once that everything is in a cycle, that there's nothing witchcrafty or woo about looking up in the sky and noticing that the sun is now falling in the horizon, and noticing that the plants are changing their color as we're moving into fall right now, noticing a little crispness in the air, noticing the birds are changing their patterns. My dogs are going to bed earlier. That matters. There's an impact. If they want to start going to bed at 8 o'clock, I'm like, shit, maybe I should start going to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock too. The sun's down. That's the natural world. And then accepting that and living with it is an incredibly empowering. It's no woo. It's just life. It's just nature. It's as practical and grounded and scientific as it gets.
Exactly.
Mm.
To support that. My biggest takeaway when I had a one-on-one reading with you, which was wonderful, and you shared so many great insights, but it was really, you summed it all up into one word. It was, Laura, you're here to be sovereign. It's about
Mm.
sovereignty.
Mm.
And that spoke to me with such truth and such depth. And it caused me to take off my blinders in some areas of what in the hell am I do? Why am I choosing this other way? That's either not in a natural cycle, or I'm pushing back, or I'm just not going to deal with. No, in order for me to be sovereign, I stand, I'm here. This is my step with my gifts that I step into. I step out of any old patterning, and I am sovereign. And that has been my golden light word that has propelled me forward since you gave me that reading. So I am very grateful for that.
Yeah. And would you say that just learning about your rising sign, the whole method of it, has helped you clarify that sovereignty?
It is the mythology of sovereignty.
Yeah, I similarly, when I started to meet with these groups, I had this theory percolating in my head for years and years. And then I finally put everyone together in the groups to see that no, my theories are absolutely correct. To be able to watch the different rising signs and then think about my life experience, I had a lot more. Oh, wait, my friends are constantly saying you should do this and that, but they're fixed risings. Why would I take advice from a fixed rising in that respect when there's no way I'm going to operate like, or and just realizing, wait, that is not in my sovereignty. Actually, I admire it. I'm very in awe that they can approach life that way and handle it that way. But that doesn't work for me. And then meeting with other mutable risings and my Gemini rising group, I can see, oh, yeah, no, this is our sovereignty because this is what we are naturally doing. And our only suffer point is that we're trying to do anything other than that.
Yes, that is exactly right.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah. And it is such a gift from God, again, whatever God is to you, but a gift from God that we have been given such clarity of being able to know thyself so that we can live in sovereignty and not slavery of the conditioning outside of us.
Yep, it's available for us. And
Mm.
then if we can share among each other and support each other. Uh,
Yeah.
One of the things I'd like to say about the Leo risings, when we're all together, I've never really thought of a lion, but we were lionesses. And
Mm.
lionesses were very different than the king lion with the great mane. We were this pack, we were this sisterhood. We would bring people in and just support them and work as one. And it just felt, what? I'm a lioness. Why have I been living like a baboon?
Mm.
What? I'm designed for this particular role. That
Mm-hmm.
is my essence. That is my sovereignty. You helped me give myself permission to go, yep, that's it. That's you. That's what your chart says. Look at other people have the same thing. That's them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to have that validation. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And watching how each of the different groups interacts with each other and why they interact. I think you're the group I think is the most fascinating to watch interact. Like I'm always like, this is so interesting. Whereas there's so many different, I'd say literally every group is different in how they interact. And some I'm like, okay, guys, stop interrupting yourselves. And some I'm like, anyone Bueller? Like the amount of times I've been like, Bueller? Anyone? There's just like dead silence in other groups. And it's just been really fascinating to watch, yeah, the interaction and the or lack thereof. But to see how that collective consciousness amongst ourselves can start to shine and accept and walk in that, the
And
grace of that chart.
heal human
Mm-hmm.
consciousness,
Absolutely.
lift
Mm-hmm.
it up.
Yeah, like when we go into the unconscious houses, that's always interesting with all the groups. This is so interesting. All these, we're getting into the unconscious, and the best way to heal the unconscious is literally just to make it conscious. And that's what these groups do. It just, anything that's hidden, it just comes out and you're like, oh, I do that. I didn't realize that.
That is the biggest selling point of these groups is if someone is really ready to work with tender gloves on with their unconscious. It's such a safe, wonderful place that you would be loved no matter who you are in your right group. This is my place. And this is a community for all of you who have listened to this group. If you resonate with me or Eugenia, we've got Fixed Mutable. If you're resonating, Eugenia is your woman and she's got a group for you.
I do. Laura, this has been absolutely delightful. Thank you for coming with so much enthusiasm. I really appreciate that you're willing to just share with us all of this insight and excitement, because I feel exactly like you. I'm so excited about what I've stumbled upon and how I've managed to learn to teach astrology in a way that seems accessible to people. And the reason I'm bringing you all on the podcast now is because I don't know how else to express my enthusiasm as much as you all, who are constantly telling me in these groups, you're changing my life. This is amazing. And I go on a podcast and I can't, no one's going to believe me if I'm saying I'm changing people's lives. I'm like, let's get the people on who are saying I'm changing the lives of, so people can actually see real life stories.
You have changed my life. I left my career as running a school, a primary school, for many reasons. I thought I wanted to become a life coach, which I did, but I am now doing it through astrology, Reiki, and my gift of clairvoyance. And I always start with the rising sign. And if it was not for you, I would have missed that whole part of gifts that can come out. So thank you for changing life for the better.
Thank you for changing mine as well. I really appreciate it. All right, Laura, thank you. And I'll look forward to seeing you in our groups and the rest of you as well. So take care and enjoy.